Welcome back to What Arty Noobs. This is an AT7. It's a tier 7 British tank destroyer. It's located on the attack spawn of Steps Assault, and it's under the command of PachuMerin. Game on! Well, this is a rather unusual tank destroyer, one of the ones that was on the way to getting to the Tortoise, the A39. The 87, it comes after the 88, so yeah, the 88 is a tier 6 and this one is a tier 7. Now it's a very strong frontal assault tank destroyer. It's meant to be in the enemy's face and, well, destroying any bunkers or any assault lines to try and knock down the dragon's teeth and generally upset the enemy by being in their face all the time. And to do that, it's actually got a gun which is a 20 pounder, and I think we'll just check to make sure he's got the 20 pounder. He's got the 57mm, not the 20 pounder, so that's interesting. He's capable of doing 75 alpha and penetrating 110mm. So this, the 57mm, is actually a 6 pounder gun, not the 20 pounder. Now he does have a reasonably fast fire rate though, and in fact you can see here the fire rate that Pachu has got it down to is 1.09 seconds per shot, so it's almost like a pin cushion. It just fires so many rounds at the enemy that effectively turns them into a sieve. You can see lots of heavy armour, but it does have a rather noticeable weak spot, that cupola right at the very top of the tank. Now, he's decided he's going to go down the centre. I was actually given this replay early this morning, and the player who was actually on the enemy team said to me that it was quite an unusual battle because they expected to be able to defend themselves, but they didn't really expect what was going to happen to them from this machine. Look at the rate at which it's pumping out the ammo, and it's got a huge amount of ammo to play with as well. He can't see that enemy tank, but he's guessing where he is, and he's already started to pump rounds into them. The A39 Tortoise was supposed to be available for the invasion of France, and when they got to the Siegfried line, and they started work on this particular version, the 87, in May of 1943, but in the end it was rejected, so they didn't actually go ahead with it. It originally did have the 6 pounder gun, 57mm, but Wargaming have actually put the 20 pounder in the game. Okay, so now he's going for the IKV-90B, and look at the rounds, pumping them in already. And he's starting to receive fire from the enemy, and the M10 finally managed to get around into him, and the Valiant, who happens to be the player from What Arty Noobs, he's fired a couple of rounds in, but he hasn't penetrated yet. But he hasn't suffered any damage whatsoever yet, well, any hit point loss, but he will suffer damage for sure. But look at the way he goes at the enemy, he's just pumping those rounds in. Now he has got a problem here because he's got an IKV-90B, but as long as he backs up against the rock, he will make it difficult for the IKV to do any damage. Yeah, he can't get round either. And look at that IKV, he's going to be flipped if he's not careful. Okay, he's lost his loader, and both tank destroyers are trying to get at him, but look at this. Just going to pump the rounds in until they expire. Even takes a round in the side, goes into the tracks from the IKV, and he's finally killed the IKV by ramming him. Now the other IKV, can you get a kill on him? He's turning around. This should be a short, brief battle. Oh, he rammed him to death. So he's stomping all over these enemies. He's still receiving fire from other tanks, but only one shell so far has actually gone through him. Oh, no, two now, because the M10 RBFM managed to get one into his rear. Okay, so he's just returning fire on them now. And there's our player, yes, the member of What Arty Noobs. He's firing as much as he can. That's Razmalian Bealud. At least I hope I pronounced his name correctly. And another enemy's destroyed, this time an M4A1. At least Razmalian's trying to block the shells from the enemy by using the armor as cover. Valiants do have very strong armor anyway, but I'm afraid against that 57mm gun, they're just going to keep punching his way through. And he's chomping down on that Valiant. Oh, he's going to ride him now. The only worry for the 87 is that he gets trapped in any way and then allows the enemy to get behind him and start pumping rounds into his rear. And yes, he's now going to tear this Valiant to shreds. And he's got him in the end. So he now has 5 kills, Pachu. And he's one short of getting a Top Gun. I think he'd rather like that Top Gun. He's just loaded another magazine of shells. As you can see, actually has a magazine feed system. And as I remember, there's 2 loaders in there. Oh! And there goes the M10 RBFM. And that was his Top Gun. Now, in theory, he could actually get a Radley Walters. There are still 3 enemy tanks out there. I'm not sure if the enemy are allowing him to get that Radleys. The Steel Waffenträger is too far away, and the Beers 44 has gone up the east side, west side of the map rather, and now there's only 2 of them left. And now the Viz 44-1 has died, so there's no chance of getting a Radley Walters. And the only remaining enemy is the Steel Waffenträger, the premium German tank destroyer with the 88mm gun, and he's somewhere over there. And we might as well wait for him to come to us. But yeah, somebody else has decided to cap as well, so he's going to go and hunt the enemy. Just shows that fantastic fire rate for the 87. Of course, the Tortoise didn't end up with that, but there's go. That's the end of the game. Well, at the end of the game, this was actually a 87 with a stock gun, would you believe it? PachuMerin actually managed to get an ace tanker out of that game. Very well played. He got a hand of God for surviving the battle, having received damage from 4 different enemy tanks. In fact, I think it was a lot more than 4 who actually fired at him in the end. It was just about everybody in the enemy team was having a go at him. He got a spotter badge for spotting at least 1,000 hit points of damage, a bruiser for getting at least 5 critical hits. In fact, he got 5 exactly. A duelist for taking down 2 tanks who damaged him, a fire for effect for doing more damage than the hit points of his own vehicle, and a shell proof for blocking more damage than the hit points of his own vehicle. He also managed to get a cool headed for surviving at least 10 ricochets or non-penetrating shots in a row, a steel wall for blocking the most damage in the game and surviving, and finally he got a Top Gun as well for getting at least 6 kills. He did get 6 exactly. He possibly could have got a Radley's if only his teammates had recognised that he actually did have the capability of doing it. Just he was too far away from the enemy at the time to actually go after them, and of course he is rather slow. He doesn't have a very fast speed, only 20 kilometers an hour, so he couldn't really chase some of those enemy tanks. It would have to be that his teammates held them in place whilst he then came round to finish them off. So let's have a look at team score. Well, he didn't get the highest damage in the game, no, because the AMX M449, the Liberté version, well, in fact, no, it's the 45, sorry, not the Liberté. The AMX M4 Milli 45 managed to get the highest damage in the game with 2,317 hit points. Second highest damage went to PachuMerin. He managed 2,041. And the third highest damage went to the Arty on that team, the 105 FH18B2, the Fifi La Pew Pew. He managed 1,884. When it came to kills, though, it was PachuMerin who actually did the best. He got 6 kills. 3 kills went to the IKV-90B on his own team and also to the Krupp Waffenträger on the enemy team. And 2 kills went to the Easy 8 on his own team and his Fifi. And also to the Viz-44-1 and Grilla on the enemy team. Our player, the teammate in our favour, Rasmelian Bearloof, I'm afraid he didn't get any damage on at all on PachuMerin. Even though he tried very, very hard to get penetrations, I'm afraid he didn't get anything, and sadly no kills as well. When it came to base XP, he's got the top on that one, 1,350. In fact, he's the only player to get over 1,000, with the AMX M445 getting 888, and the enemy Fifi, or the Fifi on his own team, managing 874. He fired 55 rounds in that game, 45 direct hits and 29 penetrations, 2,041 hit points of damage, of which 290 were at more than 300 meters. He received 35 hits from the enemy. Only 2 of those penetrated, and I think 2 of them came from the M10 RBFM, and he also got 13 non-penetrations and 3 hits by way of splash. 4,400 hit points of damage blocked by armor. 6 enemy vehicles were spotted, 6 enemy vehicles were damaged, and 6 were destroyed, and he earned 1,529 hit points of spotting assist. On a free-to-play account, PachuMerin earned 29,645 credits, but after repair, ammunition, resupply and consumables, he actually made a small loss of 3,377 credits. So he made a small loss, tiny loss though. 1,350 base XP, and there was no multiplier, so that's all the experience points he took away. But just goes to show that the stock gun 87 can be a lot of fun with a 57mm gun, although it is kind of slow, so don't chase after the enemy, because I don't think you're going to catch them. They'll just run away from you every time. But it was a lot of fun, that one. He was just plugging them full of holes, turning them all into kitchen sieves. Here's the armour on the 87. As you can see, it's very, very strong around the front. The frontal armour is 203.2mm thick. Very, very strong indeed. You notice how the gun is actually located one side of the vehicle. That is a bit odd, I know. But they actually ended up with the tortoise having the gun right in the centre of the vehicle. And, of course, that was armed with the 120mm gun. The armour is also equally thick at the front on the front plate. You can see the lower plate, though, is actually, we can see it's very thin indeed. It's 88.9mm, but it's so well angled back, it's giving you 195. The upper plates, well, you're more than likely going to ricochet it if the shell comes in directly from the front or near enough. It's actually only 76.2mm thick, but it's actually giving you about 151. So very strong armour right at the front where the transmission should be, and very strong armour where the driver is. That's where the driver is. I believe the gunner and the commander were in these areas here in these cupolas, with the loader occupying one of this cupola at the back, which is the weak spot. That's the place to aim for. It's only 152mm there, so, and it's flat-sided, so you should be able to get through that if you aim and use APCR. The sides are fairly perforous though, they're 101.6, so if you can get behind one of these or on the side of it, you can do significant damage, and you can hit the side of these cupolas as well, and they're slab-sided, so you should be able to pen. The rear of the vehicle, well, you can see it's only 101mm at the rear, again, fairly strong. But I think you can penetrate it with Arty from above, because it's only 31.8mm coming out at about 35 or thereabouts. So it can be penetrated from above. If we look at the live model, you can see with the gun that it's firing here, which is, I believe, the 20-pounder actually. To see, yes, it is the 20-pounder gun, and that is capable of penetrating some parts of the tank, but not all of them. But that's because it is a 20-pounder gun, which is quite a high caliber gun with a caliber of something, if I remember correctly, like 86mm in. It doesn't actually show it there, but I think it is 86mm in total. Actually, it's 83.4. Yes, I was wrong about that, but it's 83.4. So very strong armour at the front, but can be penetrated if you have the right round. Let's have a quick look at the modules. Okay, well, you can see the driver sitting up front with that heavy armour around him. The gunner is to the left of him and actually is operating the gun. The loaders are at the back, and in fact, actually, that back cupola that I was referring to, that one is actually the tank commander's cupola. And in fact, the loaders both have these cupolas which are slightly further forward. And you can see the radio operator is over on the right-hand side of the tank, and he's got the radio set. It's quite unusual, really, because normally you have the commander near the radio set, but in this one, the actual radio set is much further away from the commander than it should be. You can see at the rear, the engine occupies the centre of the rear compartment. Fuel tanks either side. Transmissions is at the rear, not at the front. Again, I got that wrong. The transmission is not where I thought it was, but it does have very thick armour up here because, of course, this vehicle has to be driven close to the target, which is normally a bunker. So that's where the modules are on the AT7. I hope you enjoyed that game. If you did, please give this video a like. Do subscribe to our channel. Leave a little comment down below because it feeds the algorithm. And thank you for watching.